So this is an AI influencer. She was created completely from scratch, and she's making more than 10,000 euros a month. She was created by these three folks in an agency, and she's making them thousands of euros a month from her social profiles with more than 100,000 followers. And in this video, I'd like to show you how you can create your own AI influencer and totally automate her social media posting, be it to Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, whatever. So let's get started. So before we get started, I have a little favor to ask. A lot of work went into this video, so if you get something out of it, please consider subscribing to the channel or leaving a like. Also, if this video helps me go from 300 to 500 subscribers by the end of March, I will continue improving and perfecting this tutorial. To actually see the differences in the images we are going to generate, I recommend watching the video at the highest possible quality. So go down there to this little wheel icon, click quality, and make sure you're watching this at the highest possible quality your internet connection will allow. All right, so what is this tutorial about? First, we will create a virtual influencer. I'll show you how you can create great images for an AI influencer. I'll show you how you can make sure that the face stays the same in every picture, which is crucial if you're creating a character and a believable person. Optionally, I'm also going to show you how you can control the posture. Then I'd like to share a little secret that I found that lifts the image quality to a whole nother level. And finally, I'm going to show you how you can automate all of the social media posting, because that can be a bit dreary. And it will allow you to not only create one AI influencer, but many. And by automating, I really mean automating. Only taking an image you've created, putting that in a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive, and everything else will happen automatically afterwards. The image captions, the creation of the posts, the hashtagging on multiple platforms if you want. And finally, we are even going to automate responding to comments. All right, let's get started creating our own digital influencer. There are two ways I'd recommend going about this. One would be in Midjourney. Now, Midjourney is by far the best image generator. The quality was already good before they launched their version 6, and now the quality is just fantastic. But Midjourney has a problem. In Midjourney, it's a bit difficult to generate consistent faces. Now, as you can see here, these pictures look fantastic, but if you check out the faces, you will see that they look just a little bit different every time. And that's a big no-no if you want to create a believable character that real persons want to interact with. There is a little hack that can use in Midjourney. You can ask it for the seed of an image, and then in the new prompt, you can pass on that seed to the original image, and it will create a face that will be almost like the one you created previously. But as you can see here in these 4 examples that are generated with this prompt, 1, 2, okay, 3, okay, 4, okay. They're okay, but they're just not really perfect. Also, I included the seed in this prompt here as well. And as you can see, maybe 2 of these images are kind of the same, and 2 of them are completely different, or different enough that a human will notice the difference. So I would recommend a tool called rendernet AI. And what rendernet AI lets you do, it will lock a face into place, and it will also give you control over the position of your AI influencer, and combine this into a new image. Now, Render AI also has a few downsides. It uses stable diffusion in the background, which gives you a whole lot of models to choose from. But the ones that are supposed to generate photorealistic images, I find aren't quite as good as the Midjourney ones. So what I would recommend is mixing the both together and then using that secret sauce that I mentioned to up the level considerably. RenderNet is also really affordable. Currently, they're working off a credit scheme, and you can buy for a few bucks hundreds of credits, and 100 credits will be good enough to generate dozens of images. Now, the way Render AI works is quite straightforward. You select the model you want to use. I recommend Next Photo or Realistic Vision, but please feel free to play around with them. The next thing you can do is use facelock. I've created a reference face in Midjourney, my preferred image generator, and I will be using that as the image reference in RenderNet. So you just drag and drop that image face onto here. Next, you can also give it a pose reference. I will show you the difference. The prompt I will be using is pretty straightforward. Just fitness influencer photo, 25-year-old woman running on a beach, smiling, confident, abs, natural red hair, natural lighting, natural skin. And then I find it quite helpful to specify the type of camera. A consumer-grade camera like iPhone 14 Pro will look different to a pro-level Nikon or Canon DSLR camera, for example. So before we run that here in settings, you can also tweak a few things. I also recommend playing around with them. 2 things I'm going to change right now is the aspect ratio of the images. I want square because I want to be mainly on Instagram, and the batch size, which is the amount of images it will generate per model that you chose. So I chose 2 models. Batch size 2 will generate 4 photos. Now let's just run the prompt and see what happens. So these are the images it came back with. I've selected quality plus, which is 1 credit per picture. So these 4 generations will have cost me 4 credits. And I think they look okay, but let's zoom in a little bit. If you zoom in a little bit, you will see that she still looks kind of fake. But don't worry, we will fix that in a second. But overall, these image generations are quite all right. But let's see what happens if we use controlnet with these generations. So I'm going to drag in a control pose, and I'm going to leave the prompt as is. One other thing you can specify here is how rigid it should adhere to the pose that you've given it. Balanced, prompt is more important, or controlnet is more important. So I'll switch to controlnet is more important, and we'll run the exact same prompt again. Okay, so on the right, I have the images that have come back from the generation, and on the left, I have the original pose that I gave it, and you can see that this controlnet works like a charm. It even positions the hair like it was in the original image. The hands are where they're supposed to be. The posture is the same way. It even recreated the perspective of the original image. So really, really powerful stuff. Of course, you have to make sure that the prompt you're giving it sort of matches with the controlnet reference photo that you're giving it. If you have the two being completely opposite, there might be some weird effects happening. But if you keep these kind of together, it's absolutely fantastic, the kind of results that you can get with this controlnet. Now, a downside of rendernet is this wop wop. It still doesn't get hands right all the time. So if you find an image that you really like and that you need to fix a little bit, there are three ways you can go about it. There's, of course, Adobe Photoshop with their magic retouch function, but Adobe Photoshop is quite expensive. Then there's Photopea, which is a free alternative to Photoshop, but almost as powerful, but also a little difficult to use. And here's what I use. I just use Canva. What I do is I create a new file in Canva in the exact same size as the image that I'm trying to improve. Then I import the image into Canva, and Canva has under effects something called a magic eraser, which is quite simple to use. It lets you set the size of the eraser, and then you just go over the area that you want fixed. And usually even the first result is quite all right. If you don't like it, you can just go over it again, and it will come back with something good enough. You can even get rid of an additional finger up here. It's worth playing around with it a few times. This is the result that I got this time, and over on the left, you have the result that I got previously. And I think that's almost unnoticeable. This one might need some redoing. All right, so far we've been able to generate great images. We are able to ensure that the face stays the same across all generations. And we found a great way to make sure that the posture is the way we want it. But what about the image quality? The image quality is essential because even if you're just scrolling by an Instagram feed, you will immediately notice if a picture of a person is AI generated or not, because our eyes have just been trained to recognize face. Remember to set your YouTube settings to the highest possible quality so you can actually see the difference. This is a close-up of an image as it was generated by rendernet AI. It is okay, but it is a little wishy-washy. It might even be okay if you think it was a photograph with a beauty filter on top, but we want to step it up a notch. And what do I mean by this? We want to go from this to this. An entirely different image. If I put the two side by side, you should really see a difference. It's not only an upscale, it has added features and details to the face and the skin that makes it just look that more natural. Over here on the right, it's blurry, it feels like a beauty filter, and here this actually looks like a picture of a person that is currently out jogging. And what is the secret sauce that can turn this image into this one? Now, before I show you, just a quick recap on how upscaling works. Usually you have a grainy picture with pixels, and traditionally you would just get more of the same pixels. So bigger image, but no added detail. What normal AI upscaling does, it tries to guess what the next pixel is in a smarter way, but it still just takes the base image and tries to make it better. And what the tool does that I am about to show you is this. It takes the original image and basically reimagines it. It takes the original image basically as an input prompt and then reimagines it in a much higher quality. Now, this upscaler is an absolutely crazy example, but I think it illustrates well how this upscaler called Magnific AI works. And I'm going to show you some more real-life examples in a second. All right, so let me show you a few more realistic examples. This is the image I got from Midjourney, my original face prompt. And this is the after picture, what Magnific does with it. And I think it is a world of difference. Before, after, check out the eyes. Also remember to crank up the video quality on your YouTube settings. Check out the eyes, how they come alive. Check out every single strand of hair that you can see now, and it looks just like a real hair and not like a artificial blend. Check out the freckles on her face. Before they look, AI distributed, and afterwards they look like real freckles. Check out the lips, the details on the lips it adds. I think it's great. Here's another example. Again, this is the original image that was generated by RenderNet. It looks like it has all the beauty filters in the world laid on top of the face. And this is the after picture. It looks like the face of a real woman before, after. Check out the definition of the nose, these little lines in her face, the hairs, the skin tone. I think it's just a major improvement. And a final example, same thing. The original looks, washed out. And then afterwards, the face is clearly defined. All the hairs look crisp and great. Fantastic. But of course, Magnific isn't perfect either. So for example, I don't like what it's done to the texture of her top. If you check it out before, it looks okay. And then it tries to add more detail where it doesn't really need to add more detail. And if I zoom in, you can see it looks a little fake with all these little holes or whatever it has added. So that's a bit weird. You can play around in the settings here as well, but there are different settings for what kind of image you want to improve on, if it's a video game asset or some different kinds of illustrations. So check those out if you want. And then there are a couple of other settings. You can even tweak prompt if you want. So there's loads of options that you can choose from and try to improve the image even further. And I have to say that Magnificent isn't cheap. It starts at 40 euros a month almost, which is quite a lot of money. And it only gives you 200 upscales, which kind of defeats all the playing around possibilities that you have, because if I pay that much for every single upscale, I'm not inclined to just try stuff out as I am in RenderNet, where every generation just costs me credit. So you have to decide for yourself if the quality improvements that you get from Magnific are actually worth it, or if your AI influencer already performs well enough with the results you get from RenderNet. All right, so this is the workflow I suggest for generating images for your AI influencer. Generate the image in RenderNet, fix possible mistakes in Canva or Photopea, and then upscale the images in Magnific or another upscaler of your choice, but I recommend using Magnific. All right, and now all that's left to do is to take these great images that you generated and to post them to your social media profiles, which we are going to automate, as I said. Now, if you found this video helpful so far, please consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. It would help me a lot and motivate me to make more of these videos. Also, I'm leaving links to all the tools I mentioned in the description below. If you sign up through those, that also supports the channel and helps me out. Thanks. All right, to automate the social media posting, I recommend using a tool called Make. It's a no-code tool similar to Zapier that you might have heard of, but compared to Zapier, I find it much easier to use, and you will see in a second why. Again, if you haven't signed up for Make already, I'd appreciate using the link in my description. That helps me out a little bit. So if you've never used Make before, don't worry, it will be quite self-explanatory in a second. To automate the social media posting, we're going to create 4 different scenarios, which do 4 little things at different times in the process. All of this will become a lot clearer. Now you can recreate these scenarios as I'm showing you to them and get a better feel of how Make works, or you can go into the link in my description. There's a link to my store where you can buy these scenarios as blueprints and just import all of them at once into your own Make account. And to reward people who actually watch this video closely, you can use the code AVAAI for a 20% discount in checkout. All right, let's check out this first scenario and what it does. Let me open it up. It watches a Google Drive folder. If it finds a new file in that folder, it downloads it. Then it uploads it into an Airtable and moves the file into a different Google Drive folder. Now, this is the Google Drive folder I have created for it. And there is another folder inside of it that's called Airtable. So first, I'm moving the picture that I've created into this drive. It will get uploaded, and then it will get moved into Airtable. So I know which images I already have uploaded and are ready for posting and which are still in the queue. And one last important thing, you need to make sure that your Google Drive folder is accessible to the public so Airtable can upload the files from here. So what you do is you go on this little icon and then on Manage Access. And then down here where it says Restricted, you change that to anyone with the link. This is what the Airtable looks like. And if you don't know Airtable, it's basically a Google Sheet. It's a lot more powerful and it has a lot more fancy functions that we are going to use. This is the really simple way I've structured that. And it's basically my social media scheduling tool. There will be a file name of the file I've uploaded, whether it's been uploaded to Instagram or not. When it was uploaded to Instagram, the actual image that is going to be used and shared, the copy that we'll be generating, And then if we want to use Pinterest as well, we need a Pinterest title and a date when it has been posted to Pinterest. So let's jump into that scenario and see what it does. So the first thing you need to do is connect your Google Drive account with make.com. Again, if you have questions about any of these, please leave them in the comments. So you connect your Google Drive, you leave this as is, you select the folder where the images are going to be uploaded, and you select a limit of how many images it should go through at once. I put 50 here. This clock symbol up here tells Make how often it should run this scenario. And that's one of the very powerful things about Make. You can schedule jobs to run at certain times every day, every hour, if you like, at different times during the day, which is not that important for this uploading action because you could trigger that manually. But it is one last thing that you have to worry about. Again, the goal here is to just dump an image file into a folder and everything else will be taken care of. Descriptions, captions, posting, commenting, all of that. And the beautiful thing is that Make works for you in the background and you don't have to worry about any of this, which again is especially powerful if you create more than one AI influencer at once and have these scenarios running for all of them. It takes care of a lot of tedious work that you would have to do manually otherwise. All right, so once a day it goes through the folder and checks for new files. If it finds a new file, it will download this file. Just leave this here to enter file manually and then select from the previous action the file ID. Then it will take this file that it has just downloaded and upload this into Airtable. So here again, you have to connect your Airtable account, select the Airtable base that I just showed you, select the table name, and then map the file name, in this case from the download action. Instagram posted set to no, Instagram posted date will be blank. Here you map the web content link from the step before and the file name from the step before. Everything else you can leave blank. And finally, there is an action where you take the file ID of the file from the first step and just move them to the Airtable folder that I've just showed you to clean stuff up. And the last thing you need to do is to click save to make sure everything has been saved properly. And then you turn the scenario on so it will run once a day at 8 o'clock, exactly as I have set it here in the trigger. All right, so now let's try things out. I'll drop 3 files into this folder. They're being uploaded into my Google Drive. And notice that these file names aren't really descriptive at all. Now I can go back into Make and wait till 8 o'clock until the scenario triggers, or I can click run once to trigger that thing manually. And as you can see, it runs once, twice, 3 times, uploading 3 images into Airtable and moving them into a different folder. If I go back into the folder, it is empty. And if I go into Airtable, that's where my files are now. And this is what the Airtable now looks like. It has the file name of the file we uploaded, and here are the 3 attachments. If we double click on them, you will see a preview. Great. Now these images are in the cloud, and now these images are ready to be posted. But of course, we need the captions. Now let's jump into the second scenario and create the caption. All right, here we are in the second scenario. And what that will do is it will go through every single image in the Airtable and create Instagram, Pinterest, and other captions and texts for it. And it will do this in quite a clever way. It will take the image file that we have, it will run it through OpenAI's Vision API, which is a service from OpenAI that will describe what it sees in the image. Then we will take that description of the image file and ask ChatGPT to create a caption for it. And this obviously will create a much better caption because it actually knows what's in the image than just some generic text it would come up otherwise. Then we will just pass the text to limited hyphens and finally upload the finished text into Airtable. So let's look at these steps in detail. So starting with the trigger, that is going to run every day at 9 o'clock. The thinking is if it's uploading new files at 8 o'clock, it should be ready to process those at 9 o'clock. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to go into the Airtable and get a record, so basically one row. It's going to do this 50 times. So it will take that image and pass it on to the ChatGPT Vision API. So for this, you will need an API key, which you can get at platform.openai.com. Over here, you have the API keys. Just create a new one and enter that into make.com. Now, the prompt here is really basic. Just please describe this image. And where it says image URL, you will set to image URL and then map the URL from inside the Airtable, which is this one, images URL. Can leave everything else basically as is. The max tokens switches the length of the answer, but 300 is plenty enough. You can switch around with the temperature if you want to have it a little more creative or not. I would just leave everything as is. Now up here in these little bubbles, you can actually see what happens inside of each step. Now this is what goes in. It takes the image and the image URL. If we open this up, we will see the image that we have inside the Airtable, and it will pass that into the OpenAI vision. And this is the description that it came back with. I'm not going to read this. You can read this on your own time. But as you can see, it's way more detailed than just woman running or something like that. It's really, really precise. So this is the description that we will then pass on to ChatGPT. And this is the way it looks. At this stage, you've already connected your OpenAI key. You only need one for every API that they have. Over here, you will select Create Chat Completion. Then you pick the model that you want. Just go with ChatGPT, because the prompts are really that big. Then here in system, I'm just telling it you're my experienced social media manager. And here where it says user, this is where the magic happens and where you have to adapt this, of course, to the type of influencer that you will be creating. I'm just giving it a little more context of who I am so it can pick this up for the captions that it's going to create. And again, I'm not going to read this. You can read it yourself. Just, adapt that to whatever influencer you are creating. Then two important things that you always need to include. One is to tell it to never include quotation marks around its replies, which unfortunately it does for some reason, which look weird when you post the captions. And the second thing is you need to pass the description of the Vision API response that we just created. And you will find this over here in choices, messages, content. Like here, you will see the beginning of the description that we've just read. That will be passed on to the prompt here as well. In this step, we're just making extra sure there are no quotation marks around the arm. Finally, we will be updating the record that we got in the first step by passing the record ID from the first step, this one here, leaving everything else as is, and just putting the image caption that was created in the ChatGPT step and double-checked in the text parsing step. Everything else you can leave as is. So as you can see, I already run this once. So we can already jump into the Airtable, and you'll see there's already existing copy now in the field IG copy. And this is what it came up with. And it's an excellent example on why it's worth running the image through the vision, because this stuff right here is still quite generic. But let's scroll down, and as you can see, the caption continues, and it specifically mentions that she's wearing Nike gear. And how does it know that? Well, that's because the Vision API picked up on that very tiny Nike symbol that's on her trousers right here. That's how detailed the description of the Vision API is. And that's why I think it's worth doing this extra step, because the captions will be so much more detailed and tied into the image so much more, because it's so much more context aware than just a generic ChatGPT image caption. All right, so that's 2 of 4 scenarios down. Let's look at the third one, where we'll actually be posting these images. So again, you have a trigger. You could set this at regular intervals. You could also randomize that. If you want to know how to do this, please leave a comment. And this is what I came up with. It will go into the Airtable. It will pick an entry, an image, and a caption. And then it will post that to Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. And then it will update the Airtable. You could also post that to Reddit, Discord, Telegram, WhatsApp, groups, what have you. There's a whole bunch of possibilities in here. If you want to see how to do this, please leave it in the comments and I can add that. One thing to note is you will need business accounts for all of these. Every time you use any kind of social media automation, be that a social media scheduling tool like Buffer or Hootsuite or something, it only works with business accounts or professional accounts. For Instagram, that doesn't really matter, but for Facebook, that means you can't post to a personal profile. You can only paste to a fan page or a business page. All right, let's jump in and see what it does. Again, we start with the Airtable, where we go in and search for a record. The search criteria will be that the column IG posted for Instagram posted is empty. Jumping into the Airtable, this is what it looks. There's currently all 3 are empty. So it'll pick one at random. Limit is 1. You could post multiple things at once. I advise not to do this. If you post too often, you might get banned by Facebook or Instagram or something. Then we have added a Instagram connection. If you do this for the first time, you will have to authorize your Facebook or Instagram connection. In order to set this up, you have to select your page. And then here where it says photo URL, you take the image URL of the Airtable picture that we have here. And then onto Facebook page, the connection should now be established. You select the page you want. You select download a photo from a URL. Pass it the URL again that you've already used in the Instagram step, and also pass it the Instagram copy. Finally, I'm posting to Pinterest. So in the second scenario, I forgot to generate Pinterest titles. So in the meantime, I went back in there, added another ChatGPT step that creates a Pinterest title from the caption that it generates previously. The description is again the Instagram copy. And again, everything else you can leave as blank. You can choose to include a link. I'm choosing to link back to my Instagram profile, but this is where you could also add a link to an affiliate product you're selling, for example, and everything else I leave as is. Finally, in the last step, we're updating that Airtable record from the beginning again, simply setting Instagram posted to yes, and putting a timestamp of the current time in the fields IG posted date and Pinterest posted date. All right, let's see if this works. So here I'm in my Instagram profile, one picture posted. Here I'm on my Facebook fan page, one picture posted, and here I'm on my Pinterest board with one picture posted. So let's run the scenario once. It grabs an entry from the Airtable, it's posting it to Instagram, now onto Facebook, and finally Pinterest, and updating the Airtable. So let's refresh, and there it is. Captions and all. Here on Facebook, and here it is on Pinterest. And it has updated the Airtable, so everything's... Now let's have a look at the final scenario, reacting to comments. Now surprisingly, this is the most complex one for various reasons. For one, there isn't a nice trigger that just sets off the scenario when a new comment is posted. So we have to search for new comments every once in a while. Now Make's pricing is based around how often you run a scenario and how many actions you take inside of one. So you can imagine if you have a lot of posts with a lot of comments, that racks up a lot of make actions quickly. So we only want to look for new comments that we haven't answered yet. Also, I built in a little safeguard that checks if a comment is appropriate to answer to or not, because we don't want to create yet another incident where the AI just goes off the rails and just posts nasty stuff. Now, luckily, since we are already using ChatGPT and that has a lot of safeguards built in, that's a very unlikely scenario, but still I thought it would be better to make sure. All right, let's check out what the scenario does. So this time I've set the trigger to go off every 4 hours and check for new comment. That might still be too often. We have to get a feel for this. So what does it do? It goes through every single post that we have on this Instagram account. It's currently limited to 10, but you probably have to increase that limit as you post more. And then in our Airtable, I've created a second table. This is the one for the posts that we saw earlier, and this is a new one for the comments. In the comments, I'm saving the ID of a new post. I'm saving the amount of comments it has, the amount of likes it has. I have a timestamp for the last time I've updated this table. And then a few other things. Now, every 4 hours, the scenario goes in and checks every single post that I have. It goes through the table, sorted by the last comment time, descending. So the newest ones with new updates first, and it gets the entire row for each Instagram post that we have. If it doesn't find the media ID, it creates a new row, sets this media ID, and also sets a few other things like the count, timestamps, and so on, and the URL of the post. If it does find the ID, it triggers another action, and that is it goes into the post and grabs all the comments. Again, this is limited to 10. You should probably increase that limit if there are a lot of comments. Now, you might have noticed these little things between these modules. These are called filters. And what the filters do is what the name says, they let actions go past them or not. In this filter here, we are filtering by the number of total bundles. And here we are checking if a post has new comments by comparing the current comment count to the comment count that we have saved earlier. If the comment count is higher, it continues. And here we check if the comment has already been answered or not. This we're doing by comparing the last updated timestamp to the timestamp of the current comment. Then if the comment is new, we are passing it to ChatGPT. The prompt is rather similar to the one we had earlier, just asking it, here's a comment, please respond to it, with this safeguard built in, telling it to just respond with the word inappropriate if something weird happens. Then we are catching inappropriate comments with another filter. If the response from ChatGPT is inappropriate, it goes up here. I've added a Telegram notification, but it could just go into the void, or it could be a Slack message or something else. More importantly, it only continues if the ChatGPT answer is not the word inappropriate. Then it goes to the comment ID and responds with the comment that ChatGPT has written. But you notice that these actions have a gray background. That means that there is a loop going on, because we are looping through all the comments on a single post. That could be one, but it could be 100. And this gray background just shows that these modules will be looped through multiple times And when they're finished, there is an aggregator action. The aggregator action is just basically a way to add a single action at the end of a lot of actions, which is basically just a hack for this last action to be executed only once. It writes into the Airtable the fresh comment count and the fresh like count, which in turn updates the last comment time. And if you remember earlier, we use the last comment time to check if we got a new comment or not. I hope that makes sense. There are probably better ways to do this, but that's the one that I've come up with so far. So let's see if this works or not. I've already run this a couple of times and I've commented from other accounts. And as you can see, Ava has responded on her own for this comment and for this one as well. So it's working. Now I feel like this scenario here is the one that could use a little more love. For example, up here where we filter out for inappropriate comments, we could create a block list of commentators that are multiple offenders. But for a first draft, I'm quite happy. And of course, this only works for Instagram comments at the moment. Again, if this video does well, I'd be happy to go in and create one for Facebook or for other channels as well. All right, and with this, we have the automatic posting to social media. We have the automatic comment response. Please remember to use that code if you want to buy these scenarios from my store. And please let me know what you think. If you're using this, again, I'd appreciate a like or a subscribe. If this video does well, I'd be happy to improve upon it further. So see you in the next one. Thank you.